Imagine walking down a street in London and suddenly being swept away by a tidal wave of beer. Not a pint. Not a barrel. But over 1 million pints rushing through the streets, flooding homes, destroying buildings, and even claiming lives. It sounds like a drunken legend, but it really happened. This is the bizarre and tragic story of the Great London Beer Flood of 1814. The year was 1814. London was a bustling, smoky, overcrowded city. The Industrial Revolution was transforming daily life, but poverty, disease, and accidents were constant threats. And in the heart of the city stood one of the largest breweries of its time, the Horse Shoe Brewery, located on Tottenham Court Road. Inside this enormous brewery, vast wooden vats, towering as high as 3 stories, held thousands of gallons of beer. One of these vats contained a dark porter, a strong beer popular among Londoners. But what no one realized was that these wooden giants were ticking time bombs. On October 17, 1814, disaster struck. At around 5:30 in the evening, the iron hoops holding one of the massive vats suddenly snapped. The vat exploded. Inside was over 135,000 gallons of beer. The force was so great that it triggered a chain reaction, knocking open nearby vats and releasing an unstoppable flood. In total, over 320,000 gallons of beer burst into the streets. That's the equivalent of almost 1.5 million pints crashing into the neighborhood all at once. The wave of beer smashed through walls, ripped apart timber, and swept people off their feet. In the surrounding streets, home mostly to the poor, cellars and basements filled instantly with frothy liquid. One of the hardest hit areas was Street Giles Rookery, one of London's poorest and most overcrowded slums. Families lived in tiny, damp cellars. When the beer rushed in, many had no escape. Tragically, at least 8 people lost their lives, some drowned, others crushed by collapsing buildings. Word spread quickly. Crowds gathered, some trying desperately to rescue survivors, others, unbelievably, scooping up beer with pots and pans. The brewery owners were taken to court, but the flood was officially ruled an act of God, an unavoidable accident. No one was held responsible. Financially, however, the brewery suffered. The cost of repairs and lost product was so great that it never fully recovered. Today, the Great Beer Flood seems like a bizarre footnote in history, a mixture of tragedy and almost unbelievable absurdity. But it also highlights something deeper, the hidden dangers of industrialization. Londoners expected risks from disease or fire, but who could have imagined death by drowning in beer? When you walk through central London today, there's no trace of the disaster. No smell of porter in the air. Just busy streets, shops, and offices. But beneath it all lies the memory of the day when beer became a deadly flood. So the next time you raise a glass, think of the people of St. Giles who never saw it coming. A reminder that sometimes history is stranger and darker than fiction.